Hey everyone, welcome to a Salty Showcase. In today's video, we are going to be showing off the gameplay of Midair 2, a Tribes-inspired game by developer FPsz Studios. This video is not a formal review, but a showcase of the gameplay while I talk on top of it. I will be chatting with you about the history of how Midair 2 came to be and my personal first impressions playing it as a total noob. But before we begin, I would like to give a shout out to the Catch-22 Discord community for letting me use their clips for this video, and a special thanks to Alomar for his assistance as well. Links to their Metal.tv accounts will be in the video description. Alright, so first off, let's talk about what Midair 2 is. As I said, it is a Tribes-inspired game and also the second Midair game. However, it is more of a reboot than a sequel. Starsiege Tribes is a classic team-based shooter that was released in 1998 by Dynamics. It was a first of its kind type of game that incorporated vertical movement with its unique skiing movement mechanic, jetpacks, as well as seamless expansive inside to outside levels and class-based gameplay. Tribes was also celebrated for having amazing network code that could support 60 plus people playing on the same server back in the day when gamers were using 56K dial-up modems. I will have a video on Tribes and its history releasing on my channel very soon, so I don't want to go into too much background detail here, but just know the game was a trendsetter that created the FPS-Z genre, Z meaning movement on the Z axis, and has a dedicated following that still plays Tribes or games like Tribes today. And one of these Tribes offshoots is what we're discussing today, Midair. The original game was released on Steam in 2018 by Archetype Studios, a Seattle-based startup consisting partly of former Legion's Overdrive developers. And while I don't want to get too lost in the history here, it's important to also note that Legion's Overdrive was also a Tribes-inspired game by Garage Games, the studio that was created after Dynamics shut down. Dynamics being the original developer of Tribes. You got that? Okay, so in other words, there is a lot of Tribes history behind the original Midair game. Before we talk about Midair 2, I think it's important to go back and familiarize yourself with the original Midair game because as you're about to find out, the two are very interconnected. My first impressions from the screenshots on the original Midair Steam page is that visually the style looks a lot like Fortnite, which this is not a bad thing, especially when they're trying to bring an old school genre and make it appealing to a younger audience. The original Midair had an incredibly difficult launch, including very buggy and unstable servers and a very poorly received progression system. The game was made free to play, yet despite that, no one's playing it anymore, and support for the game was halted just after 1 month of it being released. Yet despite the difficult launch and all the problems, a small but passionate group of Midair faithfuls stuck with the game, and with some assistance from the Archetype developers, these players were able to bring updates to the game. This eventually led to the group forming their own studio, with some former Archetype developers even joining them, including the art lead. From this collaboration, Midair Community Edition was born. A closed beta of this new Community Edition Midair was launched in April 2020 with updated art, new maps, new mechanics, and with most of the quote bloat from the original game being removed. The Midair intellectual property was purchased from Archetype Studios by a community member, and the IP was then leased to the Community Edition studio, now known as FPsz Studios. In time, the Midair IP was later gifted to the studio, and while I'm clearly summarizing here, this whole process took almost 2 years. And from what I gather, development was pretty slow during this time period. However, in 2022, Midair Community Edition was renamed to Midair 2 to better represent its place in the market. And like I said earlier, this game is not a sequel to the original Midair, but it is more of a relaunch of the overall concept. Development has resumed on Midair 2, and there are a decent amount of players gathering on the servers nightly to play this game. All of it is organized through Discord, and that's how I got involved. I found the Midair community because I was doing research on Tribes for my YouTube channel, and one thing led to another, and here I am. I was given a key to the game, and I've been learning the ropes along with some pretty significant Midair and Tribes veterans. The main game mode the community plays is Capture the Flag. There's Team Deathmatch as well as an arena mode, but I have not had the chance to play those yet. A duel mode and a mode called Team Rabbit are on the roadmap at midair.gg. Team Rabbit was described to me like a soccer mode where there is one flag and players must pass the flag to accumulate points. The flashier the pass, the more points accumulated. points are then cashed in when the team scores a goal. So Midair 2 has a lot going for it. It has a hardcore and dedicated community and some fun game modes that players can jump into right away. Sounds like a great mix. However, what I wanted to know when trying Midair 2 for the first time is what the experience would be like for a new player, and is the game actually fun? When I picked it up, I had never played a Tribes game. I knew about Tribes as a kid, but I always preferred Quake, so I grew up playing the Arena FPS games, and I never played an FPS-Z game before. However, at the time of making this video, I have less than 10 hours in Midair 2, and I have played against some people with hundreds or even thousands of hours in it, so what was my experience like? The short answer, good experience, friendly veterans, incredibly difficult game to get the hang of. As you can see from these clips, Midair 2 is very fast with combat taking place in the air using jetpacks. Movement is accelerated through skiing, a mechanic that came from the original Tribes and is a core component of these types of games. There is a technique to it, but the basic gist is to ski you have to drop down one slope to gain momentum and then launch yourself into the air at the tip of the next slope. Going from slope to slope is all part of the flow that is the movement of this game, and maps are designed with this flow in mind. Learning this movement is hard, and while you can watch tutorials on how to do it, the bottom line is you just need to play and practice to get the hang of it. There is a tutorial section, and there are tools you can use to learn how to ski along the pathways or courses. You can also play games against bots, which I also suggest to help you learn the ropes. There are 3 main weapons in Midair 2, a disc launcher, which behaves like a rocket launcher in other games. There is a grenade launcher and a chain gun. All weapons are projectile based and require practice to understand their timing and behavior. I think in my time playing, I killed a handful of people in the air, but they all felt like flukes if I'm being honest. I am a seasoned FPS gamer, and I tend to be at the top of the score charts in most of the games I play, but I was very challenged with Midair 2. I am familiar with rocket launchers in Arena FPS games or leading players with the rifles of Hunt Showdown, but I struggled to get the hang of the lead with the disc launcher, and you can forget about trying to combine movement with aim. I had some decent moments, but I walked away saying to myself, this game is fucking hard after almost all my sessions. Much like the Arena FPS genre, the veterans have been playing FPS-Zs since the late 90s, thus making it an incredibly difficult genre to break into, as the veterans are not easy for new players to compete against, nor should they be. I have been to a handful of Midair 2 game sessions now, and it is always the same crowd of diehards playing the game. Sure, there's a new face here and there, but the majority are seasoned players who crave that feeling of blasting people out of the sky with a perfectly led shot. I've yet to really see a newbie friendly session being played despite hundreds of people in the Midair 2 Discord, and many of them claiming to be huge noobs like me. Now admittedly, I'm a very busy person, and I have strict hours on when I can actually sit down at my PC and play games. I very well could be missing those play sessions, or simply am not online when they tend to happen. So I'm not saying they don't happen, I've just not been privy to one yet. Regardless, the skill ceiling for this game is very high, and so is the barrier to entry. Because of this, I'll be interested to see how today's modern gaming market takes to a game like Midair 2. To be competitive, a player will have to put in some serious hours to master the mechanics, and it's not a game that will cater to casual players in my opinion. The skiing mechanic alone takes time to get the hang of, and many players will find it very difficult right out of the gates. Partner that with enemies who can travel at high speeds with epic aim, and a new player is bound to die a lot. Many old school gamers from Quake or Counter-Strike will be used to the high barrier of entry, as their games can be just as rough for noobs. As for the younger generation, many of the games they play have more forgiving mechanics, and I can see many of them throwing their hands up in frustration after a few hours. My suggestion to the development team is to make the onboarding experience for a new player as friendly and as hand-holdy as possible. Force players to play the tutorial when they boot the game up. Force them to play against bots, and if possible, try to match them up with other noobs for their first, 20 plus hours in the game. Now, obviously I'm not a developer, so I don't know what kind of mechanics have to go into a system like this, but I do think that if new players go into servers with FPS-Z diehards who have been playing the genre for 20 plus years, they're going to have a very frustrating time and just quit the game. I also think that right now, as this game is in closed beta, hopefully in early access soon, more emphasis on organizing newbie sessions need to take place in the Midair 2 Discord. Maybe even go so far as to have dedicated servers for new players only, with a rule that if you have over a certain amount of hours in the game, you just can't join. Again, I'm just spitballing here. For gamers like myself, I'd rather have trial by fire and play against the veterans. But I'm also trying to stress the importance of hand-holding for newer players, because a lot of them will want it to be easier right out of the gates. And because it's not an easy game, I can see the game struggling to retain players, unfortunately. And I hate having to say things like that, because as an arena FPS junkie, I've seen it in the genre that I love. Casual gamers would just rather go pick up and play something like Call of Duty because it's easy and it's spammy and they can kill people. They don't want to play games like Diabolical that can have a pretty high skill gap between the new players and the veterans. And sadly, I think the FPS-Z concept and Midair 2 are in the same boat. Another suggestion I want to make for Vector-Z Studios is to bring something fresh to the table that other FPS-Z games don't have. Tribes is still offered as a free download and is still being played. Other Tribes games have dedicated groups that try to keep them going as well. While these player bases have understandably dwindled over the decades, they are very much alive. While Midair 2 is a great game that plays very smoothly, it's very fast with responsive physics, I wonder if it will be enough to bring these various Tribes communities to it. Graphically, it looks similar to the first Midair, with the textures looking more realistic than its predecessor. However, I don't think textures or graphics are going to be as important as gameplay. Vector-Z Studios needs to nail the original Tribes movement and gameplay and then bring something fresh to the scene. I never played Tribes, so I can't speak to how Midair 2 feels by comparison, but personally I think Midair 2 is really fun. So let's say Vector-Z does nail Tribes movement in a Tribes player's eyes. I think fresh content, fresh game modes, and a progression system that is challenging yet achievable will go a long way not only with that said Tribes player, but also with today's gaming audience as well. Now obviously I need to be realistic here. Vector-Z Studios is a small team and more content means a lot more development time, but I think regular content updates will be a key to their success. I am not sure of the business model, but I can see this game being a free-to-play experience as Vector-Z already has a cosmetic store where it looks like gun skins, armor skins, voice packs, jet trails, and sprays are the focus. However, in my opinion, skins and cosmetics are not content. I just really hope that Vector-Z has a plan in place to find that balance between releasing cosmetics and continuing to pump out new maps and game modes as well. I also think Steam achievements with in-game rewards could be a really cool addition, and if ready upon release of the game, it could really hook people in. I've really enjoyed my time playing Midair 2 thus far, and I want to thank the developers who gave me a key so I could play during this closed beta period. And you can bet I'll be keeping Midair 2 on my list of games that I'll continually come back to. I think what Vector-Z is doing, trying to breathe life into a beloved, nostalgic genre, is a really noble pursuit, and I wish them the best of luck. For all of them, this has been a passion project, and I really hope they can see some fruits of their labor when the game is released to the masses. Tribes and games like it will always stand out as an original type of first-person shooter, as there's nothing quite like it, and the genre deserves more people playing it for sure. Thank you for watching, guys. If you're a Tribes fan, let me know in the comments below. I've put a link to the Midair 2 Discord in the video description, as well as credits to the awesome people who let me use their clips. Please check it all out if you have some time. I will have a more in-depth Tribes-themed video coming out soon, so please subscribe for that and future content. Thanks for liking the video and hanging out. I'm SaltyOctopus, and I'll see you next time.